Welcome, everyone, once again. I'm Amara Chandra, and I think most people know that, but just in case we haven't met properly. And we are at the moment in Dharma night, we're looking at the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path. So we are now on week 5. Is that correct? Yeah, week 5. So the Eightfold Path, I think most of you have been here for most of it. It's one of the really fundamental teachings of the Buddha, of the one of the early formulations. And one thing that I really like about it is this week here, actually, the theme that we're going to look at today, which is livelihood, looking at the place of livelihood in our lives. And I think one thing I like about it is that it means that I feel like the Buddha's really talking to me, talking to us in our lives as sort of ordinary practicing Buddhists. Sometimes when you read a lot of Buddha's texts, I really feel like the Buddha's talking to the monks, and there was a great congregation of monks, and they're all living a very particular lifestyle. But in this formulation, how we live our lives and how we earn our living is right there at the heart of the Buddhist path. So the Noble Eightfold Path is a path. It's something that unfolds, the way. So, and it has how we give expression to ourselves through work and maybe other things as well, right there as part of this Buddhist path. So hooray, the Buddha includes us in the Noble Eightfold Path, in the Buddhist path. We don't have to become monks and nuns to really, really practice deeply, actually. This early formulation of Buddhism talks to me, I think it talks to us. We can put Buddhism into practice really, really fully, and we can go all the way to the eighth part of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is, higher consciousness or, deep meditation, and where that might lead us, So I'll just do a really, really quick recap just of the different elements of the Eightfold Path. So we started with perfect vision, really, or whole vision, or an inspired vision. And Art City started us off with this one. And we look at it in terms of vision because Sangharakshita, who's my teacher and many of our teachers, he has this, he sort of divides the Eightfold Path into these kind of 2 sections, this path of vision and this idea that when we connect with something that's really meaningful to who we are, or something a bit sort of beyond where we are, then that can sort of be at the inspiration for the path, really, the inspiration for sort of following something on. And it could be not very clear to us what that is, but it doesn't matter. It has a resonance with, in our lives, in how we're sort of, how we're motivated to sort of, explore Buddhism, explore our lives, explore our sort of creative response to life. So the vision is really important. And of course, we keep coming back to it and we keep deepening it or even modifying it, modifying what is our inspiration. And then we talked about emotion. So bringing the whole of us on board, that actually sometimes we need to bring the whole of ourselves on board. If we've got something that we're sort of inspired by and wanting to move towards, well, there are the parts of us that aren't that interested or a bit hidden or a bit secret, and we need to bring all of us, have an awareness of all of our being, including those sort of that sort of emotional side of us, that sort of whole side of us that sort of can be motivating and bring us, help us to sort of be engaged long-term with this path of then transformation. Then we looked at speech, kindly speech, unifying speech, helpful speech, truthful speech. And last week we looked at ethics. So we looked at bringing our ethical lives, how we live our lives, that expression of the Buddhist path through our ethics. So this week we're looking at livelihood. And again, I just think it points to something bigger. So we've looked at the word samyak, which is the word for right or perfect or integral or whole. You know, Bhante Sangharakshita translates this word in all sorts of ways. And I was thinking, oh, what does it mean for livelihood? And I went with, I thought actually of integrated or congruent or aligned, that sort of flavor. So sort of maybe something like a congruent livelihood, a livelihood that's congruent with my values, and with me, the spirit of me. Who am I? Who do I want to be? How do I want to live? What's important to me? So something that's congruent with my values and with the spark, really, of who I am in the world. Yeah, but it can also can probably be expanded out from the notion just of work to a sort of bigger sense of who we are in the world. Someone, I think it was in this book, but I read somewhere, probably 2,600 years ago, there probably weren't that many options with all these different ways to live life. I don't know how hobbies people had back then, but maybe there wasn't a lot of spare time for sort of hobbies. Maybe whatever you did had to be kind of useful and creative. So if you took up pottery, for instance, well, it might be because you need vessels for your household. It wouldn't be sort of just to do a pottery course. So I was thinking of this sort of the mosaic of our lives, really, all the different elements of what we have in our lives. So we have work, and actually work is often really an important part of life. But we also have our relationships and marriages. We have our children and our friendships. So that's another really big area of life. We have the things that we like to do, our hobbies that sort of, might give creative or expression to our lives, or maybe expression in terms of our other sort of values, environmental values or societal values. We have our online life. I was going through thinking, oh yeah, our online life. Who are we online? Who are you? Who are we online? How do we express ourselves in our online life? We've got our I think we've got the more active part of that, and then the more passive part of that. I think of how much time I spend online, and I'm not going to tell you. But anyone who's heard me talking in the last while, I've really loved Twitter. It's been a real drain on my time, and so I have deleted Twitter, and I really miss it, and I really know it's bad for me. So it's sort of like a former addict. I really want to, I sort of think to myself, oh, I could just put the app back on and think, oh, just another few weeks, maybe sort of get rid of that addiction. Yeah, but we have our online life where it can be a bit of a secret life, can't it? It can be a bit of a secret life, how I spend my time, but also then sometimes how I might engage if I was being more active online, how I might not be accountable for my actions. And then we've also got things like our consumer habits, how we are as, sort of out there in the world of exchange. There's probably lots of other aspects of our lives as well, which I haven't sort of thought of. So I think when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, it's like work we often have as an expression of ourselves. but we are also sort of bigger than that. And I think it's in this particular aspect of the Eightfold Path, I'd like to sort of think of it in that sort of bigger way. Even though work is often really important, we can also have this sort of bigger sense of who we are. So I'd like to do quite a bit of chatting tonight. And so why don't we just get into pairs and just introduce yourself to someone, and or maybe just think about how you want to do that. Like, who are you? What's important? And you might sort of say, oh, I do this work. You might be retired, and so you know, work isn't something that you're defining yourself by anymore. You might really want to bring it in, or you mightn't want to define yourself by your work. You might sort of have, you know, make sure you bring in other aspects of yourself. So I was thinking, all different sorts of things I was running through. It's like, oh yeah, the place that when I'm most alive, I'm often I was going to say, mustn't say boring, but you know, like if I'm talking about art, or what I love about art history, or something I've seen, or some sort of cultural sort of a cultural thing that I've been engaged in, I feel really alive, and I can really have a good conversation. And especially because maybe I've been reading something or turning my mind over on it, and I can really sort of get really engaged with it. And when I'm talking about the Dharma, I'm really engaged and sort of, you know, get in there with somebody and really sort of talk about how we're sort of you know, exploring different aspects of our lives within Buddhism, and how we're giving expression to that. I can feel really engaged with that. So what is it that maybe gives that to you, that bit of spark or that bit of engagement? And then, but there might be, you know, it could be gardening, for instance. You might sort of love gardening, or you might have other sort of areas. And then don't forget the main thing, because I was going through it and I was thinking and thinking of hobbies and things. And then I thought, oh yeah, I'm a member, I'm an ordained member of the Tree Ratna Buddhist order, and I'd forgotten. I was thinking, oh yeah, that's what really gives my life, you know, real expression. So don't forget the obvious things. So maybe just get together with just one other person, just in pairs, and just introduce yourselves in terms of that bigger sense of who you are. It might include your work, but work might be a smaller part, or you might have had a real role change just in the last few weeks, and there might be something different about your life, you know. So let's just get out there, just talk to someone, maybe just for about 10 minutes. Introduce yourselves. This is a much better bell than in the little room in there, isn't it? Great, that was nice to hear a buzz of conversation. I'm curious to know, was that slightly different way of introducing yourself, or did things come out about yourself that you wouldn't normally talk about? Yes, no, yes.
I think just having a bit more of a holistic, you know, you had to think about how you were going to present yourself and what order, and
yeah.
So yeah, I think that had an impact on what you revealed and the depth of what you revealed.
Yeah. Rather than, oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then you're a doer, aren't you? You can, but you know, you can have this whole thing, rather than just, you know, the sort of, you meet someone and or you know, that you don't know, and it's immediately, what do you do? And you're already reduced down to this sort of smaller part of yourself, or this active utilitarian part of yourself. I do this, and that's either good or bad for the conversation, isn't it? You can someone can either move forward with it, or they're a bit dead in the water. Oh God, I don't know anything about that. Or oh really, a librarian. Yeah. Anyone else? Does anyone else sort of find themselves bringing something out?
I had forgotten something quite massive about my life, but I only came out because he noticed something about me and asked a question. And I was like, oh yeah, that's huge. But yeah, it's just something that's so part of my life that it doesn't cross my mind anymore.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows me, that would be something they would talk about.
Yeah. Maybe there's a way to do this exercise with getting your friend, you know, what would your friends say about you? That's another way to think about it, isn't it? You're a good friend, what would they say? And with work, where was that in the mix? You know, maybe this is a rhetorical, maybe you can just sort of think about it, you know, describing yourself to someone, sort of presenting yourself. I wonder where work sort of fitted in with that. Maybe it was something that was really sort of significant and you wanted to bring it forward, or maybe it was something that was a bit more in the background. You know, I don't know for you, but you know, anyhow, that's just a question. We spend so much time at work, don't we? You know, sometimes it's more important to us and sometimes it's less important. I think, yeah. So anyhow.
Sometimes you have no choice, do you? You have to work.
Yeah,
The
correct.
money has to come in.
That's right.
So, I mean, for many, many years, I was stuck doing a job I hated, but I couldn't see a way out.
Yeah.
And the work was shaping me. You know, 'cause what we give ourselves to shapes us, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's absolutely correct. Yeah. I was thinking of so we'll move sort of maybe just to think maybe a bit more about work particularly, and sort of something about just in terms of this element of the Eightfold Path. And I was thinking about two examples about that sort of shaping really. I heard this interview with a man who was a North African, and he was a people smuggler, and he sort of felt like he had to do it for his family. It was good money, and there wasn't probably much else going on in his town or whatever, and this was something that he could do. But he knew it was contrary to the Quran, and he knew he was acting absolutely against all his values. So he said he made a lot of money, but he drank it all because he couldn't bear to have that money and he couldn't bear to be with himself. And he didn't see his family because he couldn't bear to also sort of front up to his family because of that. I thought, yeah, you know, oh God, that was just so painful to hear. It was painful to, you know, just listen to this guy sort of talk about this choice he made to really go against his values, and how that sort of led to this sort of sense of, you know, just oblivion and sort of taking him away from what was dearest to him, which was his family and his religion. You know, that he you know, how do you face God if you're sort of going against, you know, the values and the principles that your religion sort of puts down. Yeah, so that was really shaping his life. And then I just saw this great little film. It was nominated for an Oscar. I don't know if it won or not. And it's called A Stranger at the Gate. It's a really good film. And it's about an American guy who he was in the American military for 20 years, and he was mostly stationed in Afghanistan. And that utterly shaped his mind. His mind was perhaps a bit ripe for it, but he bought into, you know, the idea that they were going there as American soldiers to sort the world out and to sort these people out, and a strain of hatred became stronger and stronger, and he just felt like he was fighting these people, and all of these people, as a sort of blanket statement, they were all terrorists. They would all harm and kill you. So he was always on guard. And then he leaves the military, goes back home to America, which has changed a lot. And there's a Muslim community in the small town that he lives in. And he has a lot of hatred. He has a lot of hatred. And And so that his circumstances of work, it's also really tragic, had really created and reinforced this sort of huge negativity and this hatred in this man for all these other people. But yeah, so it's quite a confronting film, actually. Stranger at the Gate. It's The New Yorker. It's a New Yorker film. So if you look on YouTube, you can see the whole thing, just 30 minutes. I thought it was really fantastic. So, you know, yeah, the work was really shaping their lives. So work is really important, actually. We do spend a lot of time at work. So I thought the next thing we could do is we could just brainstorm a bit. What sorts of work do we think would probably not fit so easily into a Buddhist model of how to have a livelihood? Are there sorts of areas of work or areas of sort of livelihood and business that you think mightn't fit in so well to a Buddhist model of how to have ethical or good work? You know, thinking about shaping our lives and things like that. So let's just do this for 5 minutes, and it might be a one group of 3 or something like that, or you can change groups a bit if you wanted to do some 3s, but let's just have a quick brainstorm and then we can feed back. I'd be really interested to hear what people thought. Great, so you can just swivel around where you are. I don't need to get too comfy. What did people come up with? What were some of the discussions? What sort of things? I can see some smiling faces.
We came up with something.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Some of these sort of really predatory sort of venture capitalists, this idea of the accruing of wealth, sort of, and sort of to the detriment of all else. They sort of like they buy up companies and load them with debt and things like that, and that's really because it's often it's like taking like money or things that aren't given. I imagine that would be quite hard to sort of gel with the Buddha's teachings and beliefs, sort of that accruing of wealth above all other things. Really.
Yeah. I'm thinking of, when you sort of say that, I'm thinking of Philip Green owned, was it CNA or and then these guys bought it for sort of almost nothing, didn't they? And then they tanked it, and people's pensions and lives were all in, you know, who are these people? Yeah, that's right. It's sort of taking what they can get, and and that can be a whole model of business, can't it?
Asset stripping.
Asset stripping, yeah. It's very particularly sort of really gets to us, doesn't it? When it's sort of people's pensions and this, you know, what they put in are destroyed from that. Yeah.
It's really hard. We were talking about how, you know, there can be some things that feel really obvious. So in the charity I work with, we were offered loads of money by a local company, like £30,000, but this company make missiles and they make cluster bombs in the shapes of kids' toys. I mean, it's really obvious, but the people that work there, the everyday people, were like, but we're raising this money also by doing car washes, and this company, they can't give their money away. No one will take their money. But it really made me think about, we didn't take it, but it made me think about these people that are doing jobs, you know, their everyday jobs, and they need the money and so on, and then they want to give their money to charity. And I thought, gosh, it's quite complicated, because it can seem obvious, and the judgment part of me say, well, that's really obvious, but it wasn't that. It was more complex than that. It was really more complex than that.
That's really great, Julia. It is often more complex than that, isn't it? Yeah.
Mother Teresa always used to say, didn't she, I'll take anyone's money and I'll recycle it.
Oh,
It doesn't
okay.
matter where it comes from. I'll take it and I'll use it for good. So
I think
what do we do?
I think you're kind of dodgy ground, isn't it, as well?
Yes,
Because
dodgy ground.
you could say, well, I'm a contract killer, but I will pay the bills for the centre.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating to make the point, but
But I guess it's when it's not so obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, we both gave really obvious
Yeah.
points there, but there's this middle ground, isn't there? That if we don't explore it,
Yeah.
then we might not be aware. I wasn't aware at first.
Well, that's right, isn't it? And then values change, don't they? All those art galleries taking all the money from the Sackler family, and yeah, and then all the they're sort of having to give, this is not the Sackler wing anymore. It's going to be the Wooden wing. That's my name. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all related. Quite hard, I think, in this context to point the finger at somebody and say that is a bad job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it was Jesus who said, who is free of sin, cast the first stone.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's really great. Yeah. I was thinking when we were when I was thinking about this section, I was thinking about there's a American military base near Cambridge, and we've had people come to the Buddhist Centre and work quite fully, actually, not just working for the Buddhist Centre, but we used to have a quite a big wholesale and retail business, and people coming from that military base really wanting to join in and practice Buddhism. And well, we don't, I remember actually, I came from Australia and I was quite young and quite idealistic, and I was a bit shocked that people from the military base and who were involved in sort of American military, and the Gulf War was going on and the planes are flying from there. And I was thinking, why don't people say things? I was like, actually, it's complicated. People do jobs for all sorts of reasons, don't they? So it would be easy to make a list, but actually it's a bit more complicated than that, isn't it? It's a bit more nuanced. And those people who came to the military base, from the military base, I don't think anyone particularly said anything, but gradually they left that. They left, they were like, oh, this isn't congruent with my values and beliefs. And that's not how I want to earn my livelihood. So I think it's a bit black and white sometimes, isn't it? Sometimes just to sort of, get a list. So I was interested to have a conversation. I could hear bits and pieces. I think people were coming to that conclusion, weren't they? It's not so easy. Sometimes people are acting unethically. They just are. And they are taking what they can get. Who are the Wagner Group? That's quite tricky, isn't it? And not the soldiers themselves, but the people running it. And I guess it's complicated. So yeah, I was really interested myself in this. It's like, oh yeah, how do we live our lives and how do we draw a line? And I think we then just make the decisions for ourselves, don't we, based on where we are and what we think, what choices we think we have, what opportunities we have.
I'm going to give an example of my dad. Like my dad was a butcher.
Oh.
And it's a little bit like not identifying somebody completely with what they do, because his involvement with meat I didn't like, and I didn't think it was ethical. But that's not all he did. He was just such a kind man.
Yeah.
He was just, generous, kind, concerned about other people. And it's like that with us, isn't it? We're kind of spectrum. And right livelihood is part of the spectrum of the Eightfold Path, isn't it? And we need to look at each of those. We need to look at our speech.
Yeah.
We need to look at our vision of life and all the rest of it. And I would hope somebody would be able to come here. Butchers would be able to come here, learn meditation, and then in their own time,
Yeah, exactly.
See the limitations of that, see the with awareness, see that in perspective more. not, having signs outside saying,
No.
butchers.
That's right.
Or whatever it is.
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody is kind of welcome. But,
Yeah.
letting the Buddhist teaching influence.
That's
the
right.
practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to bring my mum's side of the family. They're butchers.
Mm.
And yeah, who knew? I didn't know. And well, it's changed a lot over the years, they don't have to actually do the butchering themselves, but they do, I guess, get huge lumps of dead animals that they have to work on. But it's a bit more it's a bit less like a slaughterhouse these days, and more just like a bit more abstracted. And they're a really great part of the community, and they're really great people. And I don't think it does affect their mental states in the way that it would have in the past. Yeah, at the same time. Yeah. Anyhow, so I suppose I did want to sort of draw out that part, that it's not completely black and white, is it? So then I think so. Certainly in the past, there would have been a list of things, or there might be a list of things that sort of would be considered less, less sort of good livelihoods in a way. My brother-in-law used to work in a bottle shop, in a off license, get the lingo right. And one day he just walked out. And it was soul destroying for him, selling alcohol to people early in the morning. And he just felt like he was doing harm by working there. So he just had to leave, and it was a real crisis for him. He never really wanted to work there. I don't know that people do want to work in off licenses, but he felt like he was doing harm. So he had to make the change. Yeah. So I hope when we talked about, the place of work in our lives, its balance and things like that, and then the complexities in a way of how we earn our livelihood, and what we do. Sometimes what we do feels really ethically clear, and maybe sometimes we have questions about what we do, and they're up for exploration, aren't they? They're sort of up for exploration and maybe review, because I think that then brings us into how we do what we do. So, well, maybe that's the next part I can throw back to you guys. How do you, when you're working, or when you're being a parent, or when you're doing what you do in your hobbies, or in your passions, or with your families, what are the qualities of how we do what we do, that makes a difference? So you could be a surgeon, I guess, and be a bit of a butcher, not really care so much for your patients. You could have a drinking problem and be a surgeon. These sorts of things do happen, and well, you feel for the person who sort of got themselves into that bind, but then it's not exactly the expression that we'd expect from a profession that we might put at the top of the sort of good livelihoods to have. Surely if you're a doctor, you'd be a caring and open sort of person, sort of at the highest sort of level, wanting to do good in the world. And of course, there are lots of stories, well, just of people of sort of humble backgrounds, actually, and humble jobs, doing it really, really well, doing it with all of themselves, and really, really connecting with the people that they do things with, that they're working with, and serving in a really humble way, just what they're doing. So maybe that my question would be something like, how does your connection with Buddhism, whether it's a long-term connection or whether it's something that you're sort of starting to practice, so Buddhist ethics, Buddhist speech, mindfulness, the other aspects of the Buddhist life that you're practicing, how do they influence how you are in the world? Maybe through your work, but maybe there's another area that you want to sort of focus on in terms of parenting, or sort of the way that you're sort of expressing yourself in the world. So that's a bit of a big question for a short amount of time, but let's just have a go. But there might be something that you think, yeah, I know the answer to this actually. That I do know that I've been working in a certain sort of way, or bringing a certain quality to my life through this. So get back into maybe smaller groups, 2s or 3s or something like that, and just discuss this sort of how. Well, I'm not sure that we have enough time to hear about that how, unless someone's got something succinct or something that they really, really wanted to share that they felt was important. I've probably just blocked anyone doing that by my earlier comment about
What
time.
about really angry vegans?
What about
You
them?
got some.
Yeah.
Keep them away from the butcher.
Yeah.
Keep them away from the butcher.
Yeah, that's right. Righteous indignation. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, so I hope it's just a little taster, isn't it? These nights, Dharma nights, just a little taster of something to explore in our lives, from and to sort of take further. So I hope it's been an area that you can sort of take out and reflect a bit on. In a way, I started talking about sort of the place of work in our life, and that, I wanted to sort of also bring in something bigger. And I think that is really important. I think there are other ways, other things that we could have sort of talked about, couldn't we? We could have talked about work-life balance, identity and work. Who am I? If I'm overly identifying with work, or with any aspect of my life, how I work in my life, how I give expression to that. And then there's questions of sort of an exploration of why I'm doing what I do. And we do have to work, sometimes just to pay the bills, sometimes to sort of put a roof over our heads and things like that. And then it also has a sort of a more intrinsic aspect to ourselves. We have maybe, it's an expression of who I am working. Maybe I'm not doing my ideal job, but I can do it as well as I can do. Or maybe I have a vocation that I absolutely have to express that in myself. So I think these sort of ways of being in the world are so important. It's so important that we bring our attention and our awareness to it, and so that we can express ourselves fully, that we can sort of know ourselves a bit more, so that we're not sort of holding back from life somehow. We're sort of moving into ourselves and being in the world fully as possible, expressing ourselves. Like, I want everyone here and everyone in the world to really be in the world, really express who you are, express what's important, or express the care in what you do, whether it's in whatever aspect of your life. So I think it's sometimes helpful to have a bit of a 360 360-degree view of what we're doing in our lives, and what's important, where the balance is. Am I working too hard? Am I overworking? And it's like, oh yeah, okay, what am I not doing in the rest of my life that means that I'm sort of a bit more invested in my work? And I think work can be really fun as well. I really love work when you just get this bunch of people, you turn up every day and you've got to work with them, and you didn't choose them. You mightn't particularly always like them, but you've got a project to do together. I really find that fun. Who are these people, and how can we work together to pull this project off? And how can I get to know you? I did really love that about, you know, different aspects of my work. I work at the Buddhist Center now, and I still feel that with my colleagues, but they're people I know a bit more, so it's not sort of, they're not such a mystery to me. And work can also be sometimes, in the past we've talked about work as the tantric guru. So sometimes you actually need something objective to be the challenge. Sometimes I've found work, it's like, oh yeah, here's the practice, here's my challenge. Work is the sort of the objective situation, the Buddha looking at me, sort of going, you want a challenge? You want to know about kindness? You know what, this is a challenging situation, right? I'm going to bring my energy to it. I'm going to engage in a way, you know, when you've got a difficulty, it can be something to sort of really bring your energy to, bring your awareness to. So sometimes you don't need to sort of go looking further afield for the sort of challenging situation. It's sort of just right there. Even if it's just the repetitiveness of getting up and going to work every day, or not getting up, sorry, that is important, but not going out to work. You know, during the pandemic, I found that really hard. I missed going to work. Yeah, so I think there's all different aspects of work, you know, which are sort of interesting to sort of think about and look at, and all those different aspects of our lives and how we, you know, how we bring ourselves and express ourselves in our lives, you know. May we be sort of, you know, fully present and creative, and have opportunities to bring out what's best in us in all our different sort of situations. Yeah. So next week we'll be looking at the sort of slightly, it's a bit of a step change in a way. Yeah. So it's effort. I think this is a good one actually. It's got a good little tool. I feel like next week it's got a bit of a little tool to sort of work with. So that's Dharma night for tonight. Lovely to see you all. Hope come back. Hope we'll see. Well, I probably will see you all next week because you're all, yeah, we know everyone. So I was just going to sort of say, just to remind you, as you all know, that our classes here, our Buddhism and meditation classes, are always given absolutely freely. So please come anytime to the Buddhist Center. Check out the website. There's lunchtime meditations, Monday morning online meditations. There's lots of things to sort of do and get involved in. Lots of ways to practice, so develop practice. So they're all given really free. If you find what you if you experience this is valuable and you'd like to give to help us with the upkeep of the building and in a financial way, that is very appreciated. And also, if you have time, there's volunteering to clean the center on a Monday. I think on Good Friday there's a really good volunteering session to sort of help clean up. So if you had time on Friday and you wanted to come and see who was around and who was sort of here, that's another way to give. I always really appreciate that how we put the cushions away at the end of the night. Oh, that's really sort of spontaneously lovely practice. So yeah, so in all these different ways that we give, really appreciate it.
That's great.
Yeah. Time to go.